Good afternoon, Rovers fans, and we are back finally after what has felt like a really long 2 weeks on the international break. We are back for our pre-match and post-match live streams on that mass canter through past Christmas and into the new year, and we're here for the pre-match live stream before our game against Luton Town away, of course. And I'm delighted to be joined by Joe, Jacob, and Alex again. How are you, Joe?
Yeah, not so bad. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. I've been itching to get back on the pre-match, so good to see you all again. Jacob, how are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm looking forward to this too. It feels like it's been a long time now, hasn't it?
It has. And Alex, how are you, mate?
I'm good. I think it's just good to be back and watching some real football rather than Gareth Southgate ball, I think.
Well, yeah, we're back to Rovers, back to Mowbray, back to everything that we know and love. And Rovers fans, we hope that you've missed us as well. So please do interact with us in that comments box. Let us know your thoughts, give us your comments, and we will build up to the game at 3 o'clock, of course. But before we start, just a word to our sponsors, 6yardsout.com. The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below. And I hope the three of you are flying the flag with your own mug. Come on, we want to see them. You're letting 6 yards out down. Get purchasing. So hopefully Jacob, Alex and Joe will not let the side down in future. We'll see their mugs soon. Okay, guys, I'm just going to start, actually. Before we look into the game in detail, there was a ruling and a rule change over the last week with 5 substitutes being permitted now in games. Joe, I'm going to come to you first. Do you think this is something that's going to suit Rovers or suit Mowbray? What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think so. We've got a relatively small squad in terms of senior players, really, because I think a lot of our squad numbers are made up by younger players, youth academy players, etc. But we do have a little bit more general ability across our team than some. As much as Adam Armstrong is far and away firing ahead of everybody else in terms of scoring goals, I think that our abilities definitely come in terms of our squads in general. Although I think probably most teams would feel the same way and say that this will be a rule that will support them and that it will help them with injuries. I think probably we've had the worst luck with injuries, maybe this calendar year, but definitely this season. Obviously, there's a few players that may or may not play today. So, yes, it's going to suit us, but maybe not more so than it would suit everybody else.
Sure. And Jacob, what was your reaction when you saw that pass this week? I think I saw a few things that suggested it suits the bigger clubs, indeed the Premier League clubs that, you know, might start doing things with certain players of a certain age. You know, what's your thoughts on it?
No, I'm really looking forward to it. Like me and Howard talked about in our video that we just did. I do feel like this is the best squad we've had since we got relegated, and I feel like a lot of the players who wouldn't make the bench can now make the bench and maybe force their way into the starting team if they come off the bench, whether they be that 4th or 5th sub, and make a good account of themselves.
Yeah. And Rovers fans, let us know what you think about the 5 substitute rule in the comments box. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's going to suit Rovers? Do you think Mowbray's going to use it well? What do you think? And Alex, just coming on to you then, just what's your thoughts about the 5 subs and how we might deploy that?
I think, to be honest, my views on this have evolved. I think during the lockdown, it kind of made sense, just with the uncertainty surrounding COVID and the potential for players to be out at short notice and things like that. And the fact that they were playing many games crammed together in a short period of time. Now, I think the way this season's panned out is that the football authorities have just gone with no logic whatsoever. We're playing more international games than we've ever played before, despite having a condensed season. So the players are just knackered, to put it bluntly. And so I think my views on this have changed from previously, where I was very sceptical, thinking it was kind of a bit of a big 6 power grab of the competitive nature of the league. But I think going forward, I think it will help us. I agree with what Joe and Jacob have said. I think we probably have a slightly deeper squad than other teams, although at times it's not really shown this season with the sheer number of injuries we've got. So yeah, I looked at it this week with a deal of positivity, to be honest.
Sure, and just picking up the comments, Leap Year Man, Mowbray made the most subs in the league this season. Joe, maybe that's something you can check out with with your stats. It probably does feel that way. And then Michael Pearson, the 5 sub rules will help us. I can see it being abused by some clubs as a time-wasting tactic. I think it'll be positive for Rovers. I think there's been a few games in his whole tenure, maybe not necessarily this season, but I think there's a sub he possibly could have made earlier in a game or done something to try and change it. And I think for whatever reason, he's not done that when he's had 3 subs. I can actually see Mowbray just being a bit more proactive. And if it does need a change and does need you to just lob on an attacking body or something like that, I think it is going to suit us. So yeah, I like it despite some of the undertones of what might be going on with some of the bigger clubs. So if we just pick up the comments before moving on, Andy Watson, still have to be made in 3 though, Michael. Yep, that's a really good point, Andy. It's not just 5 stoppages in a game. And then Dizzy Thumbs, I like the idea of more subs. I just hope that means that Tony Mowbray makes the first sub in the first hour of play. And I think, yeah, that's some of what I was just alluding to there, Dizzy. Okay, so we're going to move on from that then, guys. We spoke about before the international break just what this block of fixtures was going to be. So let's look at that in some detail now. We've got 12 games between now and the FA Cup 3rd round. It's a quarter of the season within, 6-7 weeks, which is quite insane. So, Joe, I'll come to you first. You know, just how important is this section of the season in your eyes?
Yeah, I think pretty much it's an agreed consensus that this period every year is where the league is properly formed, where your early runners like Reading fall away, although they are 2 up against Bournemouth at the minute, so maybe not. But this is the kind of period in the season where the real teams shine through. There's so many badges on the screen right now, but there isn't a single team on that graphic there that I say is unbeatable, that I say I worry about, and that I would think, yeah, this could be a pretty embarrassing scoreline or anything like that. There isn't a Leeds this year. You know, we've played Bournemouth and Watford away already. In terms of fixtures to come and ready to go, I think we are the team. I think everybody there is beatable in some way. It's just about being able to break down the more defensive sides. I mean, teams like Brentford and Bristol City and Norwich and perhaps Huddersfield and Stoke as well, a little bit less defensive this year. They're the teams I look at and think, yeah, we could win that 4-3, 4-2, 3-0. You know, Preston, Barnsley, Millwall, Sheffield Wednesday, Rotherham, Birmingham as well. Those are games that I think, you know, they're going to sit back really deep. Armstrong's not going to be able to get in behind like we want him to. And so I think it's really 50-50. But this period in general is definitely, for me, the time where the true front runners come to the fore. Yeah.
And Jacob, on this graphic, we've not got the fixtures that are home or away, which actually I don't think is a problem per se, because, you know, 2 things. We've spoken before about no crowds in games and what impact that might be having. And then everyone's in this same boat, aren't they, with games every Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday. So it's relentless for everyone. In essence, is that the best way to look at these fixtures, that home or away form is out the window? It's just a block of fixtures that we've got to go and attack?
I do totally believe that home and away just does not matter anymore. If you just look at the season so far, we've definitely performed better away from home than we have at home. And I think a lot of that is down to the fact that a lot of teams have been coming to Ewood this year and just putting 10 men behind the ball, sitting in 2 banks of 4, and we just can't break that down, unfortunately. But no, I definitely don't think the home and away advantage means much.
Sure. And then, Alex, we just spoke about the 5 subs and we've spoken about the injuries quite a lot. With these 12 fixtures in this period of time, are we going to have a little bit more luck with injuries to get through these fixtures with a good points haul?
Yes, we're going to have more luck. if we carry on the way we are, we're going to have players playing through the pain barrier. I just look at that level of fixture, that kind of quantity, and I find it just exceedingly unlikely that we don't pick up knocks and niggles in that stretch of matches. It will be so physically demanding, physically tough. I just can't see how we won't pick up those knocks and niggles. But I think, as I've just said, it will. If it takes an injection to play the next game, I think this is the time. You know, if we don't, as Joe said, perform in this block of games, you say goodbye to the season. The season's done. You know, if we're not within striking distance of that top 6 at the end of this block of games, then it's going to be extremely unlikely that by season end in May that we're going to be anywhere close to it. So, yeah, it's going to require luck, a few prayers, and playing through the pain barrier.
Yeah, and I think they usually say that playoff promotion type form is about 2 points a game, isn't it? So if we're looking at 36 points on offer from these games, we're probably looking at we need 24 points, aren't we? So what's that? My maths is rubbish. 6 wins, 3 draws, maybe something like that in this period of games. So that's the rate we're probably looking for from these games. Of course, what we do have coming back in these games, I'd like to think that Bradley Dack is back at some point in one of those December fixtures, possibly too early for Lewis Travis, but both of those are going to be like new signings, aren't they, when they come back in? So we're going to move on then. Rovers fans, hit us in the comments. How many points do you think we need to be looking at in that block of fixtures with that 36 points on offer? How many do we need? I think I've done the maths right there. It is Saturday morning, so please forgive me if my maths is terrible. But how many do you think we need? Is it about 24 or is it more than that? What do we need from that block of 12? Let us know. So, Joe, we're going to move on then onto you. Do you want to just talk us through this new feature that you've got through the Rovers Analytics site and talk us through this, mate?
Yeah, so started a new kind of format earlier this week with Lewis Travis. It's kind of called If We Lost. So it's dealing with the hypothetical sad situation where a player is no longer with us for whatever reason on a permanent basis. So I've been looking a little bit this week at Bradley Johnson, and it was a really interesting find. Obviously, all of this comes from a data analytical point of view. We're not really talking about, public and media opinion of players and things like that. And basically, we're finding hypothetical replacements for these players. But this one was really interesting for reasons I'll get into. So I thought I'd present it on the stream before we get it out on Twitter onto the Rovers Analytics account. So basically, if we go on to the next slide, basically what we're looking for is a player in their prime. We've got young players coming through in these areas. We've got older players kind of, in Bradley Johnson. We need a prime-aged player here. Somebody with aerial ability and sliding tackles, 100%. We need somebody combative there and experience within English football. So I've been kind of looking in the English divisions here, not been treading too far wide, even though obviously Mowbray and co do head into Europe now, which is great. Long passing and vision. So I think a lot of what Johnson does goes unnoticed. It's a lot of spraying the ball wide from an anchor roll and keeping that cost under 4 million. If we can, and we've got 3 options that we're going to go through at different price points, some of which significantly less than the 4 million there. So yeah, we'll move on to the first player that I kind of picked out using the data. So this guy, if you follow kind of Rovers transfer news, is somebody you'll have heard of. We've been linked with this man for what feels like 5 transfer windows running now. And surprisingly to me, because I didn't know much about him, it doesn't actually shock me anymore because the data quite clearly shows that this guy's a really close match to Bradley Johnson in terms of his abilities. Everything that he does for the last couple of teams he's played for is so close to what Johnson does for Rovers. He's a Spanish player, Alex Gorin, and he's 27. He's quite tall, enabling the air, and he is an impressive long passer. He's experienced, obviously, in Scotland and in the English lower divisions, and he's kind of the cheap option of the 3 that I'm going to talk about here. And you can even see from the heat maps there how similar these 2 are. There's going to be a comparison at the end, basically, which will go through just how close these guys are in all of their data points. So I'll move on to the next player, which is On the next slide. Yeah, so we've already got him. But one of the most fascinating things for me when I looked at this is that the closest match to Bradley Johnson across all data points in the whole of English football is Mr. Tom Tribal, and we've already got him, which made me think, wow, okay, maybe Mowbray and co do know what they're doing. Because, yeah, Tom Tribal is basically Bradley Johnson number 2. His data points are just so, at championship level, I should say, are just so similar to him, their play styles and what they can offer a team and their physicality and their numbers in general. Again, age 27, pretty able in the air, quite tall, and he's got a Premier League class technique, really, and obviously experience at Premier League and championship level. And the big key for him, of course, is that he's already embedded at our club and playing in our system on a loan deal. So I thought I'd mention him because as much as we've not seen loads and loads of him, the data says that Tom Tribal is the perfect Bradley Johnson replacement should Bradley Johnson start to deteriorate or consider retiring. I mean, he's 33, 34, may end up going the way of Charlie Mulgrew sometime soon. So that's one to consider. And then finally, I just wanted to touch on the next player, which is a man that kind of plagued us when we played Cardiff last year with an amazing goal, a guy that we've been after before, Will Vaulks, who, of course, was at Rotherham, and we were interested in him back then, but Cardiff brought him through. Again, age 27. This is your most expensive kind of option on this list of 3. A top tackler. His foul-to-tackle ratio is really low, which is quite impressive for the Championship because it's hard to bring players down without committing fouls and taking yellow cards. Quality experience at Championship and League One level, of course, and he has a great ability to play forward as well as backwards. I mean, we saw his goal when we played Cardiff at their place. He's very able on the ball. So I just wanted to quickly compare all the players with Johnson. So yeah, as you can see here, I've kind of done a bit of a data analysis. There's a lot more to it, and on the announcement on Twitter, the thread will go into quite a bit more detail, but this is a basic overview of some of their key information, mainly looking at defensive abilities here. My final suggestion is, of course, Tom Tribal out of the 3. He's already here and he's learning our process, and he's got the experience and the ability and probably around the right value. I think given his current favour at Norwich, I don't think he would cost too much more than a couple of million max. Alex Gorin, of course, is somebody to consider. I mean, you look at those data points and say, wow, that's a lot of green. He's doing really well. But, he's playing in a slightly lower division, so you've got to take that into account. And Will Vaulks, I think, is just a little bit out of the price range for us, unless we were looking at, a promotion where we're trying to replace him for a Premier League push. And basically in that graphic there, you've got your greens for, well above average, your kind of darker yellow for below average, and then your yellow for around about average, around where it should be. So, I mean, let's not forget Bradley Johnson is above average in many categories here, so he is a difficult player to replace, and you can see just how similar he and Tom Tribal are. And at Championship level, there's not many players as similar as those two. So that's what I'm going through. There'll be loads more to add to that on the Rovers Analytics Twitter page. So if you're not following and you're not getting involved in the series, do suggest players, even players from other clubs. Maybe if you're a supporter of Luton, is there a player that you've got now that you would love to know who we could be replaced with? Then let me know. But yeah, so that's if we lost Bradley Johnson.
And you're going to be doing those every week, are you, Joe, on Rovers Analytics?
I think we'll probably do another Rovers player. I think I'm going to look at Harvey Elliott because we know we're going to lose him and talk about, how do you find a left-footed winger to play on the right that can fit this system that's within the right price range. And then we might look further afield. We might look into Europe and we might look at other teams' players as well. So yeah, every week, maybe every couple of weeks as we get towards Christmas.
Brilliant. Well, Rovers fans, hit us with some comments in the box out of those 3 that Joe has presented there. Gorin, Tribal or Vaulks. Who would you be going for and who do you think we can possibly afford? I think Vaulks is probably, unless we get some money for the likes of Dak or someone, he's probably out our price range, isn't he, Joe? But yeah, hit us with the comments, Rovers fans. Let Joe know what you think. Just going to come back before we move on to some comments that we had about the points and what we need from the next few games. So Brian, come on you Blues, has said, I think we will get 24 points. T Mason 86, we need more than 26, 27 to make up the drop points. 24 would certainly leave us in the mix. Andy Watson, don't think we need 24, but yeah, around that number would be good. Dizzy Thumbs, anything less than 20 is a fail. And then also some love for your analysis there, Joe. Matthew Raj, good analysis. So really good. And El Scotty's come in and said all three of them would be good signings for me. So thanks for that, Joe. That was all good stuff, and fascinating to see that Tribal and Johnson are identical and in many ways. So that was good. So we're going to move focus onto the game itself now then. Luton Town. I chatted to Lewis, the Luton fan, yesterday about Luton, about Nathan Jones. A bit of a strange side, I think. I can't really place them in my head, what side I think they are. But Alex, I'll come to you first. What game do you think this is going to be today? How do you think Luton are going to approach it? Lewis yesterday said that Nathan Jones is a manager that probably a bit like Jurgen Klopp gets in and around the players, that passionate type of manager. Are we going to see Luton go for us a bit today, do you think?
I completely agree with what you've just said about Luton, is that I've looked at some of the games they've played and some of the results they've had, particularly at home, and they've only beaten Derby and Wickham by narrow wins, really. So that kind of has to be factored in, I think, to what we're talking about here with where they are in the league table. I think just 2 places above us. I think they're 10th, aren't they? Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
So I think Luton, it's a curious case. I do believe that under Nathan Jones, who like to have the ball, or at least they definitely did in Leagues 2 and Leagues 1 when they did so well, and they like to attack teams, with a pretty unconventional formation with the flying wing backs. But I think I kind of pivot then to the game at the end of last season, where I thought they were. Do I dare say they were quite negative against us? I thought they didn't really. I don't think they really came after us in any possible way. I think we gifted them 2 on goals and a penalty, and they won the game 3-2. So I think today, in terms of how are we going to get a result against Luton, I think we've learnt from the last game against them, which is you don't gift a team goals in this division. You don't gift teams the first goal in this division. If we give them a couple of penalties today, don't be surprised if we're on the wrong end of a result. So that is the number one key. I think other than that, we just need to be playing the way we have been playing away from home when we've been successful, which is use the ball effectively, accurate passing, quick counter-attacking football, driving at the back line of the opposition and forcing mistakes. And I think that if we do that over a 90-minute spell, then I think we've got a fantastic chance of winning the game today. But like I say, no game in this league is easy. It's a cliche, but it's nonetheless true. We could easily lose the game today if we're not playing well. So absolutely. But yeah, I don't go into this game with kind of any trepidation about the way Luton will play. I'm not kind of worried about playing Luton at all. I think if we take care of our business, I think, we've got a great chance of winning the game today.
Yeah. And Jacob, you did on the other side with me last night, and you heard from Lewis. Let's give them credit. 10th in the Championship. They are above Rovers. They've had 5 wins. But those wins, as Alex has referred to, against Barnsley, against Wickham, against Rotherham, games that Lewis thought that they should be winning, and they felt confident winning. What do you make of their start so far? And what type of game do you think it's going to be, after hearing Lewis and everything? Do you think they're going to be a team that sits back today? Or do you think it might be a bit like Coventry, who, despite going down to 10 men, still tried to play out from the back, still tried to go for us a little bit?
I think in terms of Luton's start, they've probably overachieved in some ways, I guess. I think a lot of people would probably put them finishing the season in around the relegation zone, to be honest. I mean, but I have been told that by Howard that the second half they played against Notts Forest when they had 10 men was some of the worst football he's seen. So no, I wouldn't be worried too much about Luton, to be honest. And from what the Luton fans said last night, it doesn't seem like they're a team that going to sit back because of their manager. It got mentioned in it numerous times last night whether he thinks they'll play a 5 at the back to counter us, and he was pretty adamant that that wouldn't happen, and did also say that they are quite vulnerable to the counter attack. So he's hoping that they do play a 4 at the back, and we can get in behind, because that's where we've specialised this season, especially away from home.
Yeah. And Joe, Rovers, I was reliably informed by Lewis yesterday, have not beaten Luton in the league at Kenilworth Road. And Joe Rothwell has been quite naughty on iFollow. I'm going to read the quote. No disrespect to Luton at all here, but they're a team that we expect to beat. As Joe Rothwell just stoked up some fires there, and if you're Nathan Jones, are you showing your side that quote today and getting them fired up?
Well, I'm sure he will, but I don't think Rothwell's done anything wrong. Our ambition for this season is to finish in the playoffs. Everybody knows it. Everybody says it. So, yeah, we should beat Luton. If they were 6th, we'd be saying we've got to beat Luton. So, you know, if I had a player in my side that wasn't saying we expect to beat Luton, I'd be pretty unimpressed. Because if Joe Rothwell doesn't expect to beat Luton, then he may as well rejoin Oxford and go and play in League One, mightn't he? Because there's no point playing in the Championship if you don't expect to beat a team like Luton, who, you know, forget league position. It's too early into the season. I mean, just looking at their data in general, their expected goals for is 1.26, and their expected goals scored is 1.14. This is a team that can't score goals very well. They've just lost 3-0 at home to Brentford, a team that we're so similar to. They couldn't beat Forest at home. They couldn't beat Forest. They lost to Stoke 2-0. They only scraped past Wickham 2-0. This isn't a team that I worry about big time at all. They scraped past Derby, who are a poor side this season. They've scraped past Wickham at home. Their home form is not incredible at all. They've lost their last home game. If Joe Rothwell didn't say that, I would be worried, because this is a team we have to beat, a team that we should beat. Luton's home form is significantly worse than their away form in terms of the data. You know, they're conceding 1.57 goals a game against normal teams, and we're a team that far outscores normal teams in this division. You know, I would be surprised if we don't match Brentford's 3 today. It's just about our defence, really. In terms of 5 at the back, or whether they play 4 at the back, they did play a 5 back for most of the game against Forest, where they did get a 1-1 draw. They then reverted to the 4 against Brentford and lost 3-0. So it wouldn't shock me completely if they went back to the 5 in the hope that they can get a point out of the game. But as much as I do think they'll probably be saying, look at what they're saying about us and firing everybody up, I think they'd be delighted with a point today against arguably one of the better sides in the division. But that's just my take on it, of course.
Yeah, Joe, I agree with you. I think if you're getting out of this division, you've got to believe that you're getting out of this division. And particularly last season, when we had the opportunity to get into that top 6 and we didn't, I think there was a mentality feeling amongst the fans. Have Rovers got that mentality to get up? I think the key for Rovers today, if Joe Rothwell's saying stuff like that in the press, it's just got to be backed up on the pitch. So I don't mind him saying things like that if the team then respond with that type of killer attitude on the pitch, get the result done, and as you say, go to Luton away and win, because you do need to win those games. You know, Lewis said it himself yesterday. Luton probably aren't going to go down, but they're also not expecting playoffs, so they're the teams you have to pick off if you're going up, aren't you? So let's hope the whole squad is backing up Joe Rothwell with what he's saying there, but I absolutely don't mind him saying that at all. Before we move on, Jacob, I'm just going to give you the opportunity to revisit your Hall of Fame comment. Do you want to just remind everyone what you said before the international break and what's within our Hall of Fame?
Well, in our final post-match stream, I did say that when we were analysing the games, that I did believe we would smash Luton and smash Barnsley. So I have stuck by that with my prediction for today.
Well, we will see. We will see what happens. And Rovers fans, in the comments box, how are you viewing Luton Town today? As I say, they're just a side I can't really pin. I don't know what to make of them, but Totally agree with what the lads have said there. It's a side that we have got to go and win at, and particularly if we're thinking about playoffs or promotion, it's a job that we've got to get done, and we've got to start this group of 12 games off in the right light. If we're going to get 24 points, then today is one of those games where we've got to do it. So just some early comments then. Dan Woods, we will win. Matthew Raj, I fear complacency. Parky 1981, got to be looking at 3 points today. And then Michael Pearson, Rothwell's attitude is a positive. They'll all be thinking it. Absolutely, Michael. I agree. Let's hope they all back him up on that pitch. Okay, we're going to move on to Rovers then, rather than Luton. And the four of us, as usual, have thought about what the side will be today. Joe, I know, has had some access to some insider info again, so we'll see what happens. But Joe, we're going to start with your side and what you think. Just talk us through one of the players on there and how you think Rovers are going to set up today.
Well, obviously, there's strong implications that Holtby may not play. Obviously, that's not confirmed, but kind of operating on the assumption that Holtby can't play, I've gone for Downing in that right central midfield role. Kind of put out a thread on the Rovers Analytics page talking about our plan A and plan B and how that works and why we do it. And for me, that right central midfielder needs to be left-footed for our plan A to work. So if Downing and Holtby aren't going to play there, then I'd probably play Elliott there. You need a creator there. And basically, with who's available, that's the strongest side for me. Armstrong, Brereton, Elliott doesn't really need changing. Rothwell's got to play and got to play well. Tribal, Johnson, very similar players for me. So Tribal will be fine. And hopefully I'd prefer if Holtby could play because he'd be great in that right central midfield role. But there's a strong implication he won't. So Downing for me, just a creative player, but left-footed most importantly, and obviously some good threat from set pieces and a bit of experience.
Sure. And just to pick up a comment, El Scotty has told us Jacob says he didn't see Holtby. So maybe Holtby isn't going to be there today. And Joe, given that you've done your analysis now, with if we were to lose Bradley Johnson, do you think that going through the season now, you're going to be thinking Tribal or Johnson now that you've seen that data? Because Johnson, to be fair, has had a really good season so far, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's not one that I particularly worry about if one or the other isn't available. I think they're quite similar in terms of their output. Perhaps Johnson provides a little bit more of a goal threat from range, but in general, they're both very comfortable sitters, swapping possession to both sides. I don't stress big time about either of them being in that position. I would stress more over that creative role to the right of Tribal or Johnson, or if Rothwell wasn't available. I think the anchor role is one that we've got quite well covered.
Yeah. And for those of you that didn't see Joe's tweet yesterday, I found it fascinating. I think it was about this time yesterday, possibly a little later yesterday, but about 24 hours ago, Rovers Analytics did the tweet. Some real fascinating stuff about how we try and overload that side. So give Joe's account a follow. Really good, just how we try and get those balls in behind that front three. So Alex, I'm going to come on to you then and your side. Fairly similar side, a couple of differences, but talk us through someone in your side if you can, please, mate.
Well, I think just looking at and taking into account what Joe's just said, I think I'll probably talk about Barry Douglas. I think he's kind of had a bit of a stop-start Rovers career so far, if you can even call it that, with kind of coming in late on deadline day and then, not really having much match fitness. And then I would say getting into the team against Coventry and then having that unfortunate incident against Reading in the first 10 seconds of the match. And I don't think he's ever really kind of got going yet, particularly with what I presume is a COVID isolation. I think with a lot of these players, we don't actually know whether they've been injured. Like in Amari Bell's case, I don't actually know whether he's been injured or had COVID. So I think with Douglas's case, it was COVID, which means he's obviously back for today's game. So I think it kind of picks itself, if I'm being honest, that whole defence. I look at that defence if I'm being honest with you, I don't really think we have anybody else when you take into account, who's injured and who's not injured and who's available. So, yeah, Barry Douglas back in at left back for me, and I'm looking today for a bit more than I saw against Reading. I think I was a bit disappointed against Reading with him, but today I'm looking for a bit more from him. And I think just to add to what Joe said about Johnson and Tribal, I completely agree. But I think just looking at the heat maps that he was showing us before, I think the biggest thing that I saw in the difference between them was that the heat map for Tribal was probably slightly deeper. I'd say it mainly kind of was behind the centre line, whereas I think with Johnson, he kind of straddled that centre line of the pitch. He obviously gets forward a lot more, and so I think Tribal probably suits that more deeper kind of sitting midfielder, and then Johnson has a bit more freedom to, have a bit less defensive responsibility. But yeah, I think overall we've got pretty similar teams, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. So just moving on to my side today. I've got exactly the same as you, Alex. Not really going to talk about what I've gone for too much, but just a few things that are positives. Love the fact that we are picking a front three that picks itself now. Brereton, Armstrong, Elliott. Love that. Settled sides get promoted, so they pick themselves. Good that Thomas Kaminski has travelled, as we can see scrolling along the bottom after his COVID test and positive results. So good that he's in the squad. He's important to this team. And just a reminder to Rovers fans that Ryan Nyambi did get injured for Namibia on international duty. So he's not going to play today. And there are big doubts over Daniel Ayala and Derek Williams, hence why Scott Wharton is in all of our sides. So, Jacob, I'm going to move on to your side then, mate. Do you want to just talk us through your side and why you've gone for what you've done?
Yeah, I'll just caveat something Leap Year Man's mentioned. What's in my side, I've opted for Johnson over Tribal. I do believe that's just the case for Johnson. Obviously got Player of the Month earlier this year, and he's been. I think, like Alex mentioned, he doesn't sit as deep, and I think against a team like Luton, I think a player that's not going to sit as deep is going to be a bit more helpful today. I think, in a way, Tribal is just a bit of a Corey Evans-esque player, but can pass a bit nicer, to be honest with you. And I think it'll be better today to have Johnson in there. And I've also went for Downing. I would have Downing in the Holtby position on the right of the three in midfield, but I do believe he's basically an ideal replacement for Holtby. But albeit that I did think some of his weaker performances last season did come whilst he was in midfield. I do think with the left foot and also offering set piece ability, something Holtby does do for the team as well.
Yeah. And Dan, I am going to test you out as our eye in the sky with these comments. Ellis Dixon, right at the start of this stream, asked us the question, do you think Downing should play? So, Ellis, I think you've heard from Jacob and Joe there that they both think, yes, Downing should play. And I'm intrigued by that heat map analysis that Joe's done of Tribal and Johnson, actually. And I do like to have three different types of midfielder when you've got that midfield three. I look at... hopefully you guys are old enough to remember it, but I always remember a really good Liverpool side that had Mascherano as a sitter, Xabi Alonso as the ball player, and then Gerrard as the breaker. And I thought that was a really successful Liverpool side. So I do like to have three different midfielders in there. So that Johnson Tribal dynamic is something I'm going to be watching this season. And if that means Downing gets in over one of those two, then that's something I can subscribe to. And then just going to pick up some of the other comments. So we got one on Facebook from Stu Honeyman. So just talking about the 12 games that we've got. When teams sit in, we're likely to have Dak back, who has the ability to unlock those deep sides, which we've struggled against. Joe, you spoke about that, didn't you, on your Rovers Analytics tweet about how Dak provides that additional option, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite scary, isn't it, if we can get a team somehow that features Dak, Elliott, Downing and Holtby in the same 11, I don't think we'll see a more sexy football game. It is just the stuff of dreams, really, isn't it? those four could pick out passes on a pitch twice the size that we play on and probably be all right, couldn't they? They're just, as I said, sexy footballers, really. Mowbray talks about soldiers and artists, though, and I think that Bradley Dack, unlike all of the players I've just mentioned, has much more soldier in him as well. His main thing is his physicality and his ability to beat a man is often his ability to shrug him off the ball. I always think back to Wigan at home in League One, where he puts Nathan Byrne down, and so many games that year. And it's why he was so successful in that division, because unlike your Jack Paynes and your Harry Chapmans, it was more than just his footwork, even though that was still there. So, yeah, Dak will provide something that nobody else can, and it's something that you can't go out and buy in the market.
Definitely. And Joe, we've got a request for your Rovers Analytics channel from Matthew Raj. How about a defence analysis? So might be something for you to consider on Rovers Analytics. And then there was a few other comments that we've got here just in general, just before the team news breaks. Leap Year Man, can't underestimate Luton today. This is a classic type of game we have lost in the past. Hauser 07, Holtby and Downing in a bib on yesterday's picks from Rovers looked like Rothwell, Tribal and Johnson in midfield. So we'll see if that pans out in a moment, Hauser. Then Leap Year Man, agree if he plays Tribal, should play in deepest mid-role with Johnson further forward. Dizzy Thumbs, if Joe Rankin Costello has a good game, I think it's only fair he's rewarded with more starts. And then Ellis Dixon, I'll ask you this question, Jacob. When Dak gets back, do you think Holtby will play?
In my best 11, in the video I did with Howard the other day, I did have Holtby and Dak in my best 11. Holtby obviously in the role he's playing right now, and Dak in the Joe Rothwell role. And to caveat what Joe just mentioned, I think the intricate and sexy football you can get from Armstrong, Elliott, Dak and Holtby all playing off each other. And like I mentioned in that video, you only have to look back at the Huddersfield game at home where Dak and Holtby combined for 2 beautiful goals, and I just can't wait to see that.
Yeah. And now I am just looking at the team news, scrolling across like Christmas Day. I love this time every time on a Saturday because I'm finding out when you guys do. So I think it's the side that Alex, you and I went for, isn't it? So Kaminsky in goal, Rankin Costello, Lenihan, Wharton, Douglas as the back four, Rothwell, Tribal, Johnson in midfield, Elliott, Brereton and Armstrong up top. And we will get the subs communicated very shortly. So, Alex, you've got it spot on, mate. What's your reactions to that side?
Yeah, maybe they should pay me to predict these teams. I think, obviously, if you ask me what am I thinking now after getting the team right, obviously I'm happy because that's the team I thought was best placed to get a result today. And I think I've basically just explained why just before. But, yeah, I think that team provides a good balance. I don't think really anyone can complain that it's a bad team. I think most people either be happy with it. It's the team that they would have had, or if they wouldn't have had that side, they'd probably only have 1 or 2 different. So I don't think any of us can really have any complaints about it.
Sure. And Joe, he's gone for Tribal and Johnson in midfield rather than Stuart Downing. Have you got any concerns about that as a midfield 3, or how does that look to you, how he's gone for that today?
Yeah, definitely have concerns over it. I don't think that Tribal and Johnson would work in a 3 together. I think that will feel like Evans felt in the lineup, really. I've got a worry that it might be a bit static. But we will see. I think if we can get an early goal, it might be quite good to have 2 more defensive-minded midfielders on the pitch to really see it out. But if that early goal doesn't come, I fear that midfield might be a little bit too static to help us move forward. I would have liked to have seen Downing, but I would imagine that's probably a fitness thing as well. So, I don't think that's a preference. I think he wants Holtby and Elliott on that side, or Holtby and Downing, or Downing and Holtby, or whatever. I think he wants a left footer there, but yeah, let's see how we get on. But yeah, I definitely have reservations over it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jacob, just picking up a comment here from El Scotty 2706. Luton not playing James Collins either. So is that a big boost to Rovers, particularly as, you know, as much as we are all singing the praises of Scott Wharton, he still is under 10 championship appearances, and a striker like James Collins can cause you problems. Is that a big boost for Rovers today, him not playing?
Most definitely. He was the goal scorer I predicted in the result today for Luton, so that's my prediction out the window, I guess. But definitely that'll be a boost for the defence. But obviously, has been chopped and changed so many times this season, and definitely be a help for Scott Wharton as well. And I'm kind of glad to see Joe Rankin Costello in that defence, because when we played the weaker teams in this division this year, Joe Rankin Costello has excelled. You only have to look at the games against Wickham and Coventry, and he was pivotal to some of those wins. Yeah.
And just for everyone watching in the subs today, Pears, Hayden Carter's made the bench, Nyambi, Bell, Downing, Davenport, Buckley, Dolan and Gallagher. Is that right? I thought Nyambi was injured, so that's quite surprising that Nyambi's on the bench. I'm looking at the Rovers official tweet here, so he must be on the bench. Yeah, so Joe, reactions there. Is he just not wanted to risk Nyambi, just given he did tweak that hamstring whilst he was on international duty? Or do you think it's more than that? Rankin Costello is the first choice right back now.
No, I think that's numbers. I think Nyambi's injured. I don't think they want to risk him, and I think he's there just to make up a bench that has to be bigger than normal. Obviously, Jack Vale's travelled but isn't on the bench, so, you know, they do that, though, with young players. They want them to come with the squad and embed themselves in and get used to the regimes and the systems and how it all works and go into the hotel and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, travelling to away games as far as this is like part of the body getting ready for away games. And, you know, Adam Armstrong has played so many games before the age of 23. And one of the key things of the experience of doing that is, you know, he's been down to Portsmouth on a Tuesday night and grabbed 2 goals. And that's really important. So Vale's travelled but doesn't make the bench. I think Nyambe's there for numbers personally as a last resort. Rankin Costello, every week we say we have to find him a position, but every week he kind of makes his way into the team anyway because of one injury or another. And if he can keep being that man, I don't think it really matters.
Indeed. And the Luton side, for those that have not seen it, Sluga in goal, Craney, Sonny Bradley, Matty Pearson, Harry Cornick, Luke Berry, Elliot Lee, George Moncur, Glenn Rea, and then 2 amazingly double-barreled names at the end, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall and Reece Norrington Davies. That Norrington Davies is ridiculous on a shirt, by the way. So, Alex, looking at our bench, anyone off that bench today who can cause a few problems? If we need to change it up, if we need to use 5 subs, who are you looking at coming off the bench today to make a difference for us?
I'm just trying to find the bench on Twitter because it's that long and difficult to remember all the names. I've kind of had my brain frazzled at uni this week, but just kind of predicting who is on the bench. I think obviously thinking about it more deeply, obviously Tyrese Dolan has come in this season and at times certainly early on in the early games, you know, shown a real impact. And I think a lot of the fans were kind of disappointed that due to the circumstances with Harvey Elliott coming in deadline day and then him really starting every minute of every game since then, that Dolan's kind of missed out a bit. But I would caveat that by saying that I don't think in his wildest dreams would Dolan have thought that by this stage in his Rovers career would he have had so many, you know, first team minutes at this point. And so I think what Dolan needs to do is kind of keep his head down and just enjoy the process, enjoy what he's doing this season, and enjoy coming on and making an impact in these games. I think he certainly has that technical ability, that pace, that trickery, that if we do need a goal at the end of a match, I certainly would be comfortable chucking him on the pitch. And I think, you know, if that's what we need today, if that's what we're looking for late on in the match, you know, it's going to be on players like him to, you know, make a big difference. I think, like Joe said about Ryan Nyambe, I do want to add to what he said, though. I do think there is an element of, I've never really thought that Nyambe and Mowbray get on. there's always been a kind of edge to the relationship for me. I don't know whether that's right. I don't know whether I'm misreading the situation wildly or not. But for me, there's always kind of been a bit of a hot and cold attitude to Ryan Nyambe from the manager. And that involves often playing him for 3 or 4 matches, singing his praises, and then, you know, making one bad mistake and then not getting in the team for a bit. And it kind of seems like we're in that cyclical process again with him. And so I'd be interested to know whether any of the elements of him being on the bench is more of a contractual manager situation than an injury. But I do accept that he picked up a knock with Namibia. But I just think that was an important point to mention.
Sure. We'll look to end the stream in a few minutes, Rovers fans. So in the meantime, please do give us your score predictions in the comments box, and I will be asking Joe, Jacob and Alex for theirs in a moment as well. Just to say about the subs, I look at that and I still just look at the ones who aren't there. Holtby, Dak, Williams, Ayala, big championship players for us. So still some good players to come back into this squad, as we have said before. So, Jacob, I'm going to come to you first for your score prediction. You've seen the team. You heard on the other side last night. You've got a feel for how the game's going to go. What is your prediction? And is it in line with your Hall of Fame?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I've gone for a 4-1 smash in today. And I would just like to point out, like Alex mentioned in our group chat, that Joe did criticise me for my prediction, but has gone for something a bit more ambitious for my result today. So
I'm thinking purely tactical, just trying to get the goal scorers in there. That's for the predictions league today, and I'll take over, Ryan. We don't need you to host. I'll just take it away from you. I'll go next. Yeah, my actual prediction, I'm going 1-0 Brereton for the sake of the live stream, even though I won't be joining you post game. So if I'm right, you can just say well done, Joe, without me here. But yeah, I went 4-0 in the predictions league just to get all the goal scorers in. That's tactical. I still think you're well off.
So we've got 4-1 Jacob, 1-0 Joe. Alex, what's your prediction?
Well, I know Joe's not going to be on the post-match stream to humiliate himself if the prediction turns out wrong, but I'll take the fall because I'm also going 1-0. So I'll take the rap for the two of us if we get it wrong. So I've gone 1-0 with Harvey Elliott to score.
Brilliant. So we've got a few predictions coming in. Ellis Dixon, 3-2 Rovers. Dizzy Thumbs, Rovers 2-1. Leap Year Man, want to be positive. A tight 2-1 Rovers win. Big test for us today. Michael Pearson, 3+, which I'm presuming means 3+0 or something, Michael, if you want to elaborate on that prediction. Chris Hayes, as well as predicting Rovers 2-1, has said Dolan and Downing will be key off the bench later on today. Dan Woods has gone 4-1 Rovers. Matthew Raj, I hope I am wrong. Looking at a 1-0 loss because we are always in complacency against a weak team. Oh, Matthew, you're spoiling the positivity on this stream. Alexander Haven, 3-1 to Rovers. Bibby Doo, 3-1 to Rovers. El Scotty, 3-1 to Rovers. And if anyone else wants to do a prediction, including Michael, if you want to elaborate on your prediction just before we finish, then please do. So I think that is it, gents. Thanks again for joining us on the pre-match stream. And Joe, we will miss you later on. So I hope you have a good evening when you're not joining us on the post-match. Alex, Jacob, thanks for joining us again pre-match. You'll be back later on. Got little predictions squeezing in now. Here we go. Michael Pearson, Rovers to score more than 3. There we go. Thanks, Michael. Jens Mikkel Madsen, 2-0 Rovers. And Kevin Bradshaw, last prediction I did wasn't good, but think 3-1 Rovers. So, Kevin, we will end on your prediction right there. That's a good positive to end on. 3-1 Rovers. I think, apart from Matthew, there is a lot of love for Rovers today. We're expecting to get the job done. Joe Rothwell has stoked the fires up, expecting it to get done as well. So, let's go and see Rovers go and grab this game by the scruff of the neck, and let's get the win. So, Alex, Jacob, Joe, thanks for joining us. Rovers fans, thank you for joining us as ever. Please do follow us on Twitter, Rovers_chat on Twitter. And of course, give the YouTube channel a subscribe, Rovers Chat, and give this video a like and comment if you want to. So enjoy the game, everybody, and we will see you soon. The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.